Hello and welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. Yes, we are back. No, we haven't fallen off the face of the earth. We did just have to have somewhat of a break. I do apologise. You can blame this one on me. Things, as much as we love doing Boropolis and we love spending our time doing it, sometimes things in life are just a little bit more important than Middlesbrough Football Club. And ultimately the podcast, dare I say it as well. I'm sorry, Nathan, for you to have to listen to me say that. But no, things do occasionally crop up in life. And last week, things just were a little bit hectic to the point where I said to Nathan, would it be okay? And we both agreed just for 1 week to kind of give it a miss. And that's absolutely fine. In due course, I'm sure we will eventually later down the line talk about it, but at the moment, it doesn't need to be talked about. It was just to say my apologies, but yeah, there shouldn't be any more of that. And to be honest, I'm gonna stop waffling because we've got a shit ton, pardon the language, of topics to get into, Nathan. I will ask you firstly how you are, just out of common courtesy, but a hectic week for you. You finally finish uni, 3 points today. I imagine you're feeling quite good on this Saturday evening, Nathan.
Very good, mate. Very good. As you mentioned there, busy week. Finished uni, doing deadline day for Boropolis on Friday. What a hectic day that was, which we'll get into. And yeah, topping the week off with a win just before the international break. So yeah, a lovely, lovely week topped off with a 3 points from the Borough.
Yeah, it does always cap off a lovely week. And also, it is capped off a lovely Saturday for me because I was one of the lucky few that got Oasis tickets today. I'm so sorry to brag, Nathan, but I had to get it in there. Look, what we would have been discussing last week was Portsmouth. Now, of course, the results being and gone, everyone will have known the score now, of course, by now. Anyone that's got any interest in listening to a Middlesbrough podcast, I would assume you would have known the score from last week now. So it finished 2-2. Some of the similar sort of signs from Derby in the sense that, well, at least one of Portsmouth's goals was an absolute gift from our behalf. It was a defensive mess up, but ultimately, I guess the main positives are the fact that we managed to take something from the game. To be honest, it would have been a travesty if we hadn't have taken 1 point out of Portsmouth and Derby, and not just because of. I'm not saying teams like Portsmouth and Derby because of our performance. Ultimately, we had more than enough chances to take probably 6 points out of those games. We haven't, but we also have taken something. And I guess you've kind of got to take the silver linings out of situations and games like that. And I think also one of the main sort of positives was the impact of Tommy Conway on that game and the fact that ultimately he has the deciding say in getting us back into the game and has the confidence to go and take that late penalty and get us a point.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We should have probably taken more from Derby and Portsmouth, two newly promoted sides, playing both of them. I mean, we've gift wrapped two out of the three goals that we've conceded against them both. Wasn't necessarily impressed by either of the teams and their performances, but look, we've dropped 5 points in those two games against teams that are undoubtedly going to be in the bottom six teams in this division once again, which is rather shit, if I'm honest. But yeah, you've just got to hope that with it being early on in the season, our sort of record of being horrendous starters, you've just got to take the rough with the smooth, and we've actually started relatively okay compared to previous seasons. We have actually got points on the board at this stage. So yeah, one of those where the week before we lost a game where we banged on the door for pretty much 70, 75 minutes. And then, yeah, last week against Portsmouth, similar signs, had to bang on the door for 60 odd minutes, pull us out of the muck. And Yeah, Tommy Conway dispatches that penalty and gets us a point. So yeah, just wanted to move on from it as quickly as possible in the next game. But yeah, there was a signing before that, wasn't there, Chris?
Yeah, there was. And I mean, throughout the whole of the summer transfer window, it's not a name that was linked. It's not the name we all probably thought it would be when we eventually made that permanent left back signing. And it come out the blue, but we now kind of know, thanks to additional context and pieces of information that have come out since, that this has kind of been a signing in the making for the previous real 18 months. It's a signing that we've been looking at and I believe tried to make last summer. It wasn't a signing that was available, and then we've kind of waited and pounced when we could. And that is the signing of Brazilian left back Neto Borges. I hope I haven't butchered that name. I'm sorry, Neto, if I have. But yes, he has come in from Clermont in the French, a second division. Quite interestingly enough, I think, kind of regarding the context about this deal, I think firstly you look at the price, and I think Middlesbrough have done very well to use circumstances to their advantage in this deal. Clermont got relegated, but Neto Borges was named League 1, and yes, I am fluent in French if you didn't already know, left back of the year 22-23. And at that point, of course, it was a deal that was just probably financially not even achievable for us. He's been linked with all sorts of different clubs. It transpires that he actually did turn down Nantes and Brest as well, who are actually in the Champions League. He's turned down Champions League football to come to Middlesbrough. And although, yes, we've seen him play today, Nathan, we hadn't seen an awful lot of him. I would be lying if I said I even knew who he was before he was linked. However, it does look, from all of the sounds and all of kind of the early signs that we've seen today, I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, that left back spot is going to be his, and it's a certain caliber of signing where he undoubtedly improves the team.
Yeah, we've had problems at left back for, well, definitely last season with Engel coming in and Bangura. Bangura's injury problems have been massively negative for the squad, and Engel is very much in fit and starts in terms of his form. And at the start of this season, it hasn't been great for Lucas Engel. So yeah, we were desperately trying to bring this left back in. Obviously, the deal for Ryan Giles didn't happen, partly probably because of him just signing for Hull. He's got 3 years left on that deal. Hull very much playing hardball over it. Fair enough. They've just invested a lot of money in this player. So yeah, instead we've gone and signed Neto Borges instead. A little bit of a different sort of signing and a different profile to Ryan Giles at left back. Looks like he's more defensively astute than Giles, just in terms of his frame and yeah, his overall build. He looks more better in the air, stronger, probably stronger in the tackle as well. And with that, he probably offers a little bit less going forward than Ryan Giles as well. But yeah, we got our first glimpse of him today at Cardiff, which we'll get onto a little bit later. But yeah, the opening signs are pretty good on Neto.
Yeah, and as you say, I think the kind of profile aspect of Borges is a really interesting one because, as you say, kind of if you look at any comments from people that have watched a lot of him, kind of French football experts, the main sort of aspect of his game, which is praised, is his defensive ability. And obviously, the kind of profile that you would have been getting in Ryan Giles is, look, I'm not kind of one of those that believes that Ryan Giles is a horrendous defender by any stretch, but obviously it's very kind of balanced in one way that his attacking ability is his obvious strength of his game. And obviously at the moment we have Luke Ayling playing centre half, but when inevitably he moves back out to right back and Rav comes back in. You look at that back line and one, there's some real height in the back line, and obviously that's going to be a threat from set pieces, as we have seen. I mean, to be honest, you don't need anyone else in the box when you've got a magnet on the head of Baldini, but yeah, we'll get onto that a little bit later. But I mean, as I'm kind of alluding to, it's I think it probably makes us a little bit more balanced than if we have brought in Ryan Giles. Now, by no means would that have been me complaining. If we had at all, I would have been more than happy. But it certainly seems like a signing that will make us more balanced and probably overall a better outfit for that. I think as much as it's kind of heavy metal football and the idea of Giles and Ayling bombing on is an exciting prospect, I think we really saw the best of Ryan Giles when Tommy Smith was effectively playing as a third centre half, which gave Giles almost a reduced kind of responsibility defensively. And having Borges there, it almost works, or hopefully it'll work in a way where there's a balance on either side. If Ayling goes, Borges is more than capable to defend. Obviously, Luke Ayling, vice versa, he will be able to defend. If our new Brazilian wonder kid left back, he's not even a wonder kid to be fair. He's is he 27, Nathan? I believe.
Borges 27, yeah, but I think he's
Yeah.
28 next week, I think.
Well, happy birthday for them now. But yes, not quite a wonder kid, not now anyway. But anyway, it's a really exciting signing and a signing that we were crying out for. There was a couple of positions like the Conway signing where before we'd even kind of had a link all summer, we knew a left back was, well, I say this, that's not actually the case because at that stage Bangura was still fit. But as soon as we knew Bangura was long term, which was relatively early in the summer, in fairness to me, it was a signing that we had to make, and thankfully we've finally got that over the line. And as I say, a real kind of impressive one, given the fact that again it seems like a target that's been on the recruitment team's radar for a while, and they've waited and they've pounced when they could. So one signing down. We won't kind of continue on the topic of signings because we'll kind of go to deadline day in chronological order. I mean, to be honest, we might as well get onto it quite quickly because Stoke happened and it was, in the least analytical sense ever, a bit of a shit show in the end. 9 changes. In fairness, we didn't even start that bad, but we just fell apart, didn't we? And I think Carrick, although dear God love him, he tries to find the positives. And there was a few, namely Alex Gilbert, but a young, rotated Middlesbrough side, it got quite ugly, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way of describing it. 9 changes to the side, only Clark and Ayling were the players that kept the places. So yeah, very very sort of rotated side, giving players a chance. I mean, 2 of the players that started on Tuesday night are no longer actually at the club. They're out on loan now. But yeah, Micah Hamilton played, Harvey Hunt played, Gilbert. Yeah, I don't really know what to say, if I'm honest. I thought we did okay first half. Second half, yeah, you're going 1-0 down. Changes made at half time. Dijksteel and Engel on for McCormick, who got injured within the first 20 seconds of the game, but played till half time. And Ayling, which was always going to be the case with it just being a round 2 of the cup, give Harley Hunter an experienced head either side of him with Clark and Ayling to sort of manage him through the game. But yeah, those changes, especially one at left back, was the killer for us, really. 4 goals in the second half coming down our left hand side. I don't want to go into it too much. If it was in a league game, I'd very much be going into it. But yeah, it was a Sheffield Wednesday Lucas Engel performance, really. Really, really poor. And yeah, we were hoping that Neto Borges might have some competition at left back as he was watching on from the stands for this game. He must have been rubbing his hands together at seeing the performance put in by his fellow left back.
Yeah, and I think that works both ways, to be honest, because for me, looking at Engel, he just looked like a man that, and it's no one's fault, this, by the way, because he's had more than enough chance to kind of make that left back spot his own, but he looked like a man who just had zero confidence. He kind of had no confidence in his ability to go and win the ball, no confidence in his ability to kind of go and pressure anyone. He looked, his head, and look, I know, like, it's easy for us to say and easy for fans to say, well, he should have done this or he should have done that. But even in terms of just the mental aspect of kind of the signing being made on that day, I honestly think it must have had somewhat of an effect, because he didn't even look. Listen, Lucas Engel probably hasn't lived up to expectations, but he's never, as you say, apart from Sheffield Wednesday, really, never dropped below a certain level. I think, to be honest, he dropped possibly even below Sheffield Wednesday level on the night. It was a real disaster of a second half performance, and I'm sure he will bounce back, and I'm sure he'll provide competition for Neto Borges, but at the moment it does look a difficult and kind of long road back to being in the team, permitting injuries, that is. But yes, we're out the cup. I don't want to be that guy, but I wasn't. Listen, I certainly wasn't pleased by the performance or the result, but I wasn't kind of crying into my coffee the following morning after the result. I must admit, I loved Leeds for what it was. It was a really, really good night, and one that has probably built up the confidence in the squad just before it being knocked down against Derby. But it was a night we'll all remember. I think the Stoke game is one we'll quickly hope to forget. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to move on if you are, Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, we said a couple of weeks ago in on this podcast in the week where we were previewing Leeds away and Derby away that we both didn't really care about the cup, and if we had to pick one game in which we won that week and one we lost, we didn't mind losing to Leeds and we'd happily take a win at Derby. It happened the other way, and this week, if we'd recorded last week, we'd have probably said if we'd have been beat against Stoke, we wouldn't have minded. And if we'd won the league game this Saturday, it would have been what we wanted. And that came true. But in between that, deadline day, Chris, a busy, busy day, a hectic day that, as you mentioned earlier on, we didn't expect too much really on deadline day. I think there may have been a murmur maybe the day before that we were going to sort of dip into the centre back market, maybe. But apart from that, there was not a whole lot meant to be going on until about 9 o'clock on Friday morning, in which I messaged you saying I was on my way to the local news agents to scan papers.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you say, kind of chronologically, if you want to do it that way, we we had obviously seen on Thursday night that the club were quite confident. I think it will have been Dom Shaw early Friday morning, confirming the reports from the previous night that it looked like George Edmondson from Ipswich was going to come in on loan, basically to kind of make up the numbers and assist with a few of the problems at centre half that we were having, and are still continuing to have just through injuries to Rav. And obviously, I think Lenihan and Fry are probably a little bit behind schedule. And that was okay. You know, it did seem a little bit of a stopgap signing. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't one that's going to get fans off their seat, but ones that, you know, a signing that was by all means probably needed. And that was okay. As you say, you then were on your way to the petrol station. And to be honest, I meant to ask you this. I don't know if you were intending to go to a petrol station anyway to put petrol in your car, or you just seen that there was rumours that Ipswich were interested in Emmanuel Latte Lath in the Mail or the Daily Mail sports section, and you just decided to belt it over to your kind of local petrol garage just to have a look through the back pages of the papers and see if it was complete nonsense or not. The way it transpired was you made it to the petrol station. You said, "No, Chris, we're fine. Someone's pulled the wool over our eyes, and they're just having one big joke." Seconds later, you then send me a screenshot as I am sitting down at my chair at work saying, well, I won't even repeat what you said, to be honest, but it was effectively, oh dear, this Ipswich thing might have something in it, because it was on the kind of Daily Mail's deadline day online live tracker type thing that they had going on. And at that point, you thought, right, okay, well, the Armando Broja deal, to kind of everything that had been reported from the big journalist in the sports journalism world, was that was almost done and dusted. And I think they'd been linked loosely with Odson Edouard at Palace, but there hadn't really been another striker linked. And at that point, you thought, right, well, we'll see how this goes, and they might stick a bid in, but that'll be that. They aren't gonna get beyond probably 15 million, and then they'll just leave it. And to be honest, that got parked for a while, so we'll just park that there. In the meantime, Josh Coburn, we discussed it heavily in last podcast. He does get his loan move. He's gone to Millwall, and he scored today, assisted by Duncan Watmore. I mean, it was written in the stars. And to be honest, as we said in the last podcast, I don't want to dwell on it too much, but this is ultimately the exact move that I was hoping for. A championship loan. It gives Josh the opportunity to go and play. It gives us the opportunity to see if Josh Coburn is really up to the championship standards. And it works so well, because if he goes there and does well, and then he comes back and we decide, you know what? Josh Coburn is a championship striker, but he's just not a championship striker for our style, then we can go and make a couple of million on him. And it works for both parties. He may go there, he may set the league alight, and he might get 25, and then they bring him back in and think, right, well, we've got a local lad, a striker on our hands who's had a red hot season last year. Let's try and use him to our advantage. He's our player. And I think just for Josh Coburn's own development, he's going to get games. And that is ultimately what we wanted. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have been devastated or over the moon if he had have stayed. I think his football would have been limited. But I think this is best for both parties. And I think ultimately, it's timing-wise, it could have happened a little bit sooner, but we wouldn't have got that Leeds goal. So who cares? But yeah, he was the first loan of the day. We also did have other loans throughout the day. Sonny Finch has gone to MK Dons, which is going to be a great opportunity for him. Pharrell Willis went to Queen of the South in the hope that he follows the trajectory of Isaiah Jones. We'll wait and see if that comes true. But yeah, that was kind of like the stuff that you almost expect on deadline day. What came next was not quite as expected. And I had exercised my flexible working rights at work, finished an hour early, walking out the gates, check my phone, and I see a tweet from Craig Hope saying that Emmanuel Latte Lath, or sources say that Emmanuel Latte Lath has not travelled to Cardiff. And that is due to the fact that yesterday, of course, that would have been Thursday, Middlesbrough rejected a bid of £20 million. Now, honestly, I double, triple, quadruple checked to make sure it wasn't a fake account, because even the way the tweet was written, the way that it was kind of phrased, I was like, this can't be right. And then before I knew it, the notification come through from you tweeting it out. And fairness to you, you were rapid all day. So credit to Nathan. Majority of the tweets on deadline day was his whiz kid fingers tapping away on his mobile phone. But yeah, that come through and immediately kind of, in the least analytical way possible, the shit hit the fan, Nathan. And kind of within a matter of minutes, the mad half an hour, 45 minutes just began. Keith Downey was reporting that it was kind of on Latte Lath that he wasn't going to travel. Immediately then everyone kind of gets their back up and thinks, well, you know, what's all this? We've given him an opportunity. He's hit a good run of form and now he's just, you know, sacked us off. He's ready to ruin everything just to get a move to Ipswich. Then it's kind of reported that actually it's not going to happen. There's no chance, but he's had his head turned and he wants to go. In the meantime, the Broja deal was kind of on and off as well, so we weren't sure what was happening in that sense. And then I think kind of towards the back end of the mad hour, it had become apparent that Latte Lath was desperate for the move. He wanted to go. He actually wasn't Ipswich's first choice target at all. And they probably weren't going to come back in for him. And Middlesbrough were going to stand firm regardless, but less than ideal at that stage, really.
Mate, what an incredible hour this was in my life. Just what on earth was actually going on? Because before this, it was
Yeah, I
sort
mean,
of,
sorry to interrupt, but chronologically, we randomly just got linked with a Liverpool wonder kid, and that just did come out of completely nowhere as well. But we'll speak about Latte Lath first.
it was just mad. It was the initial link from the Mail, then it was sort of shut down by our local journalists, both Craig and Dom had sort of said, look, Middlesbrough standing firm on interest, as it has been all summer. We're keeping our big hitters, nothing's going to happen. Then the Daily Mail come out with that, that he's not going to travel, the bid had come in, and you think, oh, no, this is gonna it's probably going to go through. I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking there's loads of time left for a deal to be struck here. I'm thinking, yeah, we're going to lose our striker on deadline day, and now Conway was being playing as number 10 as our now number 9 and only number 9 because Coburn was announced at a very similar time to this. Full panic stations, trying to keep tabs on loads of different sources. As you mentioned, Sky now reporting that it was on him. Just an absolutely crazy mental hour. And yeah, it came out that the players were flying to Cardiff at 3:30 and Latte Lath was not going to be travelling with the players, but he was sat at Rockcliffe with the borough officials, and both parties were just locked in conversations for a good few hours. And in the meantime, Borough signing Ben Doak from Liverpool, which came out of nowhere because he was meant to be going to Hull the day before. It was said on multiple sources that he was going to Hull, but then Baz Cooper, Hull's local journalist, shut that one down, said it wasn't going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Anthony Joseph, who is quite reliable with news up in Scotland, and Ben Doak's Scottish, said that it's Borough or Hull. And the fact that we were linked was quite a shock, really, I think, when you looked at things. Although me and you had a conversation on Thursday night, and I did call that we would be linked to some sort of winger, which we were, and we've now signed one. So in the know.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a great prediction, Nathan, but I don't even think you had any sort of idea of who it was going to be. I think your actual suggestion on Thursday night was Manuel Benson, wasn't it? after last, would it have been last January? Yeah, last January's kind of, and we now know, to be fair, that there was substance to Zarori and Benson due to that Burnley documentary. I don't know if you've seen that, or if anyone watching will have seen that in the last few weeks. But anyway, getting sidetracked. As you say, timescale wise, we're a bit all over the shop, but we'll kind of tackle each topic as one. I mean, in terms of incomings, Ben Doak comes in. He's basically passed his medical late on in the evening and is announced with the whole Big Ben video, which I thought was great, I must say, from the Middlesbrough admin team. But he adds something from the right. And I think a lot of people, to be honest, kind of were under the impression that Micah Hamilton was going to be the competition for Isaiah Jones. I think with this signing, we now know, or at least kind of have a better idea, that perhaps Hamilton is going to be competition off the left to offer us something different. It does make a little bit more sense because if you look kind of back through his Manchester City youth career and any real appearances that he's had, he has played off the left. He definitely, from what I've seen at least, I think he looks more comfortable out on the left. That's just my opinion. I know I've seen contradicting opinions, which, you know, people have watched him and they quite fancy him to be a little bit more direct on his stronger foot and sort of a get to the byline type winger. For me, what I've seen of him so far, all I can think is Jadon Sancho. And I know I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I mean, Jadon Sancho's just come off the back of being in the Champions League final for Dortmund and ironically had a deadline day move as well, but not quite the winger in the mold of, I guess, what I initially probably profiled him as and what I thought he was going to be like that. And that's the danger with watching highlights of YouTube videos. We're honest enough on this podcast to say I don't sit and watch kind of hours and hours of Y Scout of Manchester City's under 18s games. I just don't do that. But from what I'd seen of videos, he didn't kind of, he looked a little bit more direct than what we've seen from him so far. And we might yet still see that side of him. But at the moment, it has looked very kind of academy football-esque. He'll kind of get into a position, cut back, and he's probably happier to pass the ball off rather than, you know, take a risk or take a gamble. And I'm sure with age, with experience, that'll come. But, you know, anyway, sidetracked again. So Doak's come in, that's confirmed. From what we know, and I know you do have a little bit of a soft spot for Liverpool, so you're probably the better off person on this podcast to speak a little bit more, because I'm guessing you were probably more aware of Ben Doak. And don't get me wrong, I was. It's one of those from kind of the top 6 Premier League clubs where they have certain youngsters which have just got that kind of reputation for being the next big one. And I think he's had that for a while now at Liverpool. And look, from all of the comments from Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool fans, it's a case of he's very explosive, very direct, very speedy. They're just waiting to kind of see that final ball, that final bit of end product, and that kind of final real burst onto the scene in men's senior football. And I know we speak about it an awful lot with Isaiah Jones because they are all the things that Isaiah Jones was when he initially come through, and that's sort of been coached out of him a little bit. But everything that I've seen of Ben Doak, again, only highlights, but he does seem more in the mold of a winger off the right that is really going to get you off your seat.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, the buzzwords are quick and direct, and it's something different to what is sort of the norm now in football with wingers that are very much sort of right-footed left wingers and left-footed right wingers. Doak is a right-footed right winger who's going to drive down the line and get balls in the box. Yeah, it's a very interesting move. He is only 18, so there is that. He's very inexperienced. Played a handful of games for Liverpool in the Europa League, but the sort of expectations on him are very high, really, for such a young player, and that's
I
come from
have,
his performances in the academy.
yeah, sorry, Nathan, to interrupt. What I had seen yesterday, which I thought was a little bit of a crazy one, was that just a couple of years ago, Doak was kind of almost viewed in the eyes of Liverpool fans as a potential Mo Salah replacement in the eye of the future. But I mean, even to kind of get that level of expectation, you've got to have some talent. And from his kind of, as you say, limited minutes and appearances in cup competitions and things like that, there's signs obviously that have made Liverpool fans think, wow, we've got a serious talent on our hands here.
Yeah, 100%. And he was quite unlucky in the summer as well. Selected for Scotland, and as I mentioned there, he's only 18. Was selected for Scotland to play in the Euros, but had to drop out with injury. But yeah, a really exciting signing, and we've seen that he's turned down a lot of Championship clubs to come here again. So he sees this place in Middlesbrough as the best place for his development, which is obviously massive, massive credit to the football club. And yeah, hopefully he's given opportunities here and he makes a big impact for us because you look at this, we've discussed on this podcast for years, going into transfer windows, we want difference makers. We've said this, me and you, that we need players that are hopefully just going to pull off that little bit of magic for us when things aren't going our way. And Ben Doak has the ability to do that.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way, and it is a one that I'm really, really excited to see. And obviously, as we said with Jones last week, I think for the first time really in his Middlesbrough career, obviously Marcus Forss is still a little while away in terms of injuries from everything that we're kind of getting from Michael Carrick. But I mean, those sort of three positions behind the striker, I can't really remember a time in probably over a decade that we've had as much competition and genuine competition in those kind of roles. And I mean, it's a formation, obviously, that we did play under Aitor Karanka. And even during the promotion season, yes, okay, we brought in a real X factor with Gaston Ramirez, but there wasn't kind of as much options and as many different profiles for the manager to go, I think today might suit him, or when we're chasing a game, right, I've got him that can make a difference, or him that can give a defender a little bit something different to think about, and that's really, really exciting. It's something that, again, you've just got to applaud the recruitment team for. Moving kind of on in terms of incomings, as deadline day went yesterday, more twists and turns. Edmondson had kind of gone quiet. It was off. Middlesbrough basically looked at the situation and kind of assessed that actually they may well be able to kind of muddle on through, wait for some injuries to come back, and then there wouldn't really be a necessity for that kind of signing. Ultimately, it was back on, and I think it transpires that kind of it was a deal that Middlesbrough viewed was just too good to turn down. And he's in the building now. He's going to provide another option. It's a season-long loan. I mean, his nickname is the Fridge. Look, it's not a kind of glitz and glamour signing by any stretch, but it's valuable cover. And I think that's kind of the main aspect of this signing.
Chris, you've just said there, his name's the Fridge. If he's anywhere near the level of Matt Clark, we are so back.
I mean, they are two very, very imposing centre halves if they were ever to line up together as a pairing. I mean, the thought of that for any striker that wants a physical battle. Maybe it's not a 100-meter race, but a physical battle is terrifying. But yes, it's a one that's going to come in and provide competition, slightly different to Ben Doak, where I think he's genuinely going to come in with the view of, I'm going to play and I'm going to burst onto the scene in the Championship.
I was going to say, don't you just love these signings though? Like a daft loan signing that's just blatantly coming in for cover. I just love
Yeah,
them. I
yeah.
love these
I
type of
must
signings.
I must admit, and I hope I'm proven wrong, because if I am, it more than likely means he's come into the team and been fantastic. But to me, this absolutely reeks of it's getting terminated in January. But who knows? Who knows? That's the beauty. I predicted Sheffield Wednesday as my dark horse, and they've had an absolute stinking start of the season after really impressing on the opening day. So, I mean, let's just hope it goes that way. And I'm miles off again, Nathan. But anyway, back to Latte Lath, because again, timescales wise, we're just all over the shop. In the end, obviously, it was our understanding that he was travelling down to Cardiff and he was going to meet up with the rest of the Middlesbrough squad after they'd arrived. That came true. And we now know, bless him, Manu decided to just jump in the car and do the journey himself. Never mind jumping on a flight. He was just going to get there. I think Carrick said that he'd got there at like 1:30 in the morning or something like that. And I think the good thing about this is, look, a lot of people, depending on kind of their view of how things have panned out and the way that they've understood and kind of analyze the situation, they won't forgive and forget as quickly as what others will. But I think what Carrick has done, and whether this is actually the exact way it transpired or whether this is just Carrick using it as a little bit of a deflection tactic, I don't think many people will probably ever know. But it does seem like, from everything coming out of the club, that although he didn't travel, it wasn't a case of complete toys out the pram. It was an understanding of, this is a potential life-changing move for Emmanuel Latte Lath on Premier League wages, the opportunity to play in the Premier League alone for a really exciting young manager. And I know everyone says, well, it's only Ipswich, but Ipswich are a Premier League club with a really quite big budget for a newly promoted team, with a really exciting team as well. And you can see, if you take off your Middlesbrough tinted glasses, you can see the appeal of that. And unfortunately, that's just where we're at as the Championship club at the moment. However, what was nice to hear was that there was a level of understanding and respect from Latte Lath that kind of, once he realised this wasn't going to happen, it was, right, okay, I want to be involved. And kind of from what Carrick said, it was a case of a phone call as soon as the Middlesbrough team had landed in Cardiff from Latte Lath to say, I'm on my way down, Gaffer. Just wait for me, type of thing. And listen, I think it probably, I don't know. I don't want to kind of make it seem like I know what people are thinking, because I don't, and I don't know individuals' feelings, and it would be silly of me to act that way. But I imagine Emmanuel Latte Lath is probably feeling a little bit embarrassed now. And I think not only because that made it out in the media, but also because ultimately, although Ipswich did place a big bid in by all accounts and it was rejected, and that's another topic in itself, the fact we've stood firm and said no, because in years gone by, we probably would have crumbled. So that's a major, major green tick in the box of recruitment and the club. But the fact that really he was never actually Ipswich's first choice target, and it all come out in a way initially where it seemed like he was kind of trying to force this one through, it probably seems now, and I'm guessing he's probably thinking, I wish all of this had just never happened.
Yeah, literally that. Yeah, it's a horrible sort of circumstance because, look, everyone knew from the news of the summer, really, that Emmanuel Latte Lath wasn't their first target. They've been linked to plenty of other centre forwards as the window has gone on. And look, they fell out of talks with Broya a couple of days ago, and in the meantime, they've probably thought, right, we've got to do something, so we'll move down the list. Okay, Latte Lath's on the list. Bang, 20 million quid. See if Middlesbrough budge. And I'm going to be totally honest. I think that if this was a week ago, I think that bid would have been accepted. But
I think I'm not 100% sure 20 would have, but I think timing wise, I do think potentially an agreement would have been found. I'm not going to lie.
I think to be offered 20 million pounds for a player that, if you asked us in February, would we have had this bid, we'd have laughed in your face. If you'd have said in February that we'd have been offered 20 million pounds for Emmanuel Latte Lath in what, 6 months' time, we'd have laughed on this podcast. And look, credit to him, he scored 12 goals in 13 games. There's no one taking that away from him. But yeah, it's 3 months, and look how mental that is. This is how football works. 3 months can get you a move like that and get interest in you like that. We've stood firm with it being the final day of the window, or the final days of the window. Credit to them. We wouldn't have had time to get a replacement in of similar caliber. No chance, absolutely no chance. And yeah, the way that things have happened, they threw that bid in on Thursday. It came out that this had happened on the Friday, and as this was coming out that the 20 million pound bid had been rejected the day before, they were already back in for Broya by the time this had all come out. So it shows how much they really cared about that bid going in. So yeah, a very strange situation. Yeah, I understand the circumstances for the player, as you mentioned, life-changing move to the Premier League. It's the pinnacle of football for a lot of players playing in the Premier League, the most watched league in the world. And yeah, the money would have been fantastic as well, no doubt. But yeah, we're in a situation where he's our talisman, and we have aspirations to get him promoted. And if you've got that, which we did say at the start of the window, if you've got aspirations of being of trying to get promoted out of this division, you need to keep your best players, and we've kept our best players.
Yeah, we have, and as I said, it's a major, big tick in the box. The fact that at the start of the summer, Kieran Scott sat down with the local media and said, Steve Gibson's intention is to keep hold of our best players to give us the best chance to potentially get this football cup back in the Premier League. And they've absolutely stuck to their word. Listen, I think probably from everything that has been reported, the kind of firmest interest in terms of an actual bid being made was that of Ipswich's bid for Emmanuel Latte Lath. But ultimately, as I say, in years gone by where we may have crumbled and we may have thought, well, do you know what? It's 20 million. As you say, you could look at it as I still don't think it is the case, but it could have been viewed as he's had a purple patch. We've got the opportunity to get 20 million and make God knows how much profit, probably stick a nice little sell-on percentage in there. And who knows, we might even kind of cash in on him and get a little bit increased amount of money in another season's time if he goes and gets 10 goals in the Premier League, because he'll get another Premier League move. But we haven't. We've stuck to our guns. I can't remember the exact phrase, but something along the lines of battening down the hatches, which it's exactly what we did do. And look, I think there'll probably be a lot of cynical people who think, okay, Carrick's come out now and said it was all very respectful. It wasn't all very respectful when he was refusing to travel. everything that kind of has been reported and everything that, as far as our understanding of the situation goes, is it was amicable in the fact that, okay, Emmanuel Latte Lath probably wouldn't have minded the move, but the club were also of the understanding of, this is a life-changing move for him. And it's understandable that that would potentially catch his eye and perhaps, put his head in a position where actually he probably may not have been in the right headspace to travel to Cardiff and go and play a game today. Now, the good thing for me is in the sign of the character. I don't know. A lot of people immediately said, oh, he's seen the reaction on social media and thought, oh, actually, everyone hates me. I best get down to Cardiff. But in terms of, from our understanding, again, it was kind of something that was agreed on both by the player and the club. And ultimately, it was the player in the end which has said and got in touch with Carrick and said, I want to be a part of this. And to me, at least he's trying to make amends. I think had that have not happened, had he have not kind of got in the car last night and said, "Oh, I'm not playing," and really thrown his toys out the pram, at that stage, it's a whole different situation for me, because then you're kind of already looking at January, and he may still go in January, but you're already kind of looking there and thinking, "We'll just get rid of him," because he's just going to sit and sulk, probably not try his best, and we're going to get half of the output from a player, and then probably less of a fee than we were expecting to get in the summer. But I don't know. I think with context now and a little bit of information, look, I think hopefully it can be moved on from. And I'm just pleased that there is kind of that sign of respect and that human nature as well from the club that understands that, it's a potentially life-changing move for Emmanuel Latte Lath. And I know people might listen to this and say, well, yeah, but it's only Ipswich. But the money, the difference, the kind of the way that a family has been brought up, the way an individual may have other responsibilities kind of away from football, where, that kind of increase, doubling, tripling your salary in any other job in the world, most people would straight away say, well, if it's the best thing for my family, then yeah, go on then, I'll do that. And, ultimately, sometimes you've kind of got to not put it down to that. There's different factors, but you've got to have a bit of a human side, I feel, with this one. And it's good to see that there's kind of that level of an understanding. And I think I must say as well, major credit to Michael Carrick, because the way he dealt with the questions today and the way he's handled it, I thought was absolutely terrific, and just yet another sign of the absolute amount of class that man oozes. Just the perfect way to manage the situation. Nothing to kind of add fuel to the fire, but the perfect way to sort of not cross the line and say that fans should feel a certain way, but try and provide a little bit of context. Let the fans let what they want to think, whilst also keeping the player on side and kind of building that bridge for Latte Lath to come back into the fold and almost just move on as though nothing's happened.
Yeah, just move on as nothing's happened. And I was interested to see today, despite him traveling last night, whether he was actually going to make the squad or not. I was really interested to see that. And when the team came out at 11:30 this morning, seeing him in the squad was nice. Seeing him on the bench, it's what I thought he would be, where he would be. But yeah, the Latte Lath situation was what it was. He's back in the side now, and for me, if he scores in a couple of weeks' time against Preston or Sunderland following that, I will happily sing his name from the rooftops if he scores the winner at the Stadium of Light.
Yeah, and listen, I'm sure now that the additional context is out there, and again, the cynics will probably say, I don't believe a word of what Michael Carrick said. That's up to the individual, I guess. But for me, and like you've said, football fans are, and I'm including me and you in this, football fans are pretty fickle. If he now goes on a run and scores 6 goals in 6 games, it'll be forgotten about for the most part. And that's the beauty of football. And if he does go and score 6 and 6, then we'll probably be in a really good position. So let's hope that that is the case. I think that's enough on Latte Lath now, Nathan. Obviously, kind of everything surrounding yesterday, the deadline day as a whole, the kind of transfer window as a whole, just summarizing on that. I think ultimately that is the only sort of slight negative that I take out of this transfer window. Other than that, I just wish it hadn't happened at all. But other than that, it's been, for me, overwhelmingly positive. We've addressed all of the areas that we needed to, whilst also supplementing the squad with different options, different profiles, hopefully some real difference makers, as you say, whilst getting not only in terms of like technical ability and the footballers that they are, but in terms of age, contract length, the types of characters, the fact that a lot of these players have turned down other clubs to be at Middlesbrough. I think you've just got to give the likes of Kieran Scott, the likes of Chris Jones, Neil Bowser, I don't even know what capacity he works in at the club anymore, Gibson, all of the scouting department, and even Michael Carrick. I'm sure he's had a large say in all of this as well, but they've got to get a major round of applause, because we have seen now the real impact of Kieran Scott. And look, some of the signings we've made may not work out, but when you look at, as a whole, how sort of transformative the previous 2 windows in terms of summer recruitment have been, the way that we've kind of bounced back finally, and the position that we kind of find ourselves in now, from all of those loan players going back and being absolutely decimated with, let's be honest, a pretty poor squad. We're now in a really strong position with contracts, with the lack of loan signings, and we're protected because they're players with resale value, with contracts that means if we do have one of these signings which has an unbelievable season, then it's just another asset for the club where, and we've, so many people cried out for it for years, where in terms of the Brentford or the Brighton model, we can now, if needs must, if we don't get promoted, cash in on one asset and replenish the squad via that money and just keep on building it year on year. Now, ultimately, I'm on the side of the fence where I want us to get promoted. I want us to bring footballers in that stay at the football club and make us better. I don't want to become a stepping stone at all. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just so much more healthier. And in terms of the business side of the football club as well, it's been transformative again, this transfer window.
Yeah, it's really, really, really nice. I remember a few years ago, before I even sort of joined Boropolis and I was writing articles by myself, I talked about me wanting to have a football club that was like a Brighton or a Brentford, and change the recruitment model and not signing players that were touching 30, seasoned championship professionals that had probably 1 or 2 seasons left in them, and we were signing them for big money on big wages, and then in 2 seasons, 3 seasons time they were leaving for nothing, and it was just a constant cycle of replenishing poor players with poor players. It was just really, really poor. But now, as you mentioned, since Kieran Scott and Chris Jones have come into the football club, working in tandem to just improve recruitment and build a squad full of young players with exciting amounts of potential, long contracts, and as you mentioned there, having the ability to, okay, if we sort of don't get ourselves in a position where we can get promoted, sell one player, reinvest that money in a couple of players, and then all of a sudden you've got an extra few more assets in your squad that are only going to get better and better. And we've got three real big hitters at the start of the summer that we didn't want to lose, and we've added to that with plenty other players that I can see already are going to be real assets for the football club, and whose value literally by the end of this season are going to be really high compared to what we've paid for them this summer. So yeah, it is massively pleasing. Let's just hope that now, with the summer window that we've had, because it's been really good. It's been so exciting. We've brought in loads of players with a lot of potential, mixed that with a couple of bits of experience with the likes of Ayling, the likes of Edmondson coming in, even though that Edmondson's come in yesterday sort of as cover. He's got experience not only at this level, but also literally last season coming in games for Ipswich, which were high pressure games in which they needed to win, and putting in man of the match performances week in, week out for Ipswich when he was put in and given the opportunity. Yeah, it's really exciting. And Michael Carrick now has all the tools available in his squad to be able to mix things up in games for certain scenarios, and we've got a real good chance of making the top six, and who knows where that'll end us up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think overall, ratings wise, I think always, if it was a 10 out of 10, then Emmanuel Latte Lath would have just travelled down to Cardiff on a flight yesterday and wouldn't have even been aware that Ipswich was sniffing round him. But, in modern football, that's impossible. It's got to be, okay, I won't give a rating because some of these players are fairly untested, but from everything that I expect to happen and everything that we have seen in terms of recruitment, I think, it's been absolutely an undoubted positive window for the football club. Nathan, there was a football match as well today. We haven't talked about that. We did win. There was changes in the team. As you say, Emmanuel Latte Lath was kind of the big headline. But the other big headline was the fact that our new Brazilian left back started and also impressed, looked really assured defensively. We probably haven't seen too much of his attacking threat yet, but was pleasantly surprised at just how kind of settled he was coming into the team. Another summer signing who just seems to get better each week at the moment. American boy, my goodness. He's already made more impact than the other American that we've got at the club currently in the space of 4 or 5 games than his whole 2 years at the club. And admittedly, even if he'd had 2 good games, he already would have. But I can't even begin to put into words how impressed I've been at his adaptation from the MLS, which is, let's be honest, apart from the odd aging superstar, probably Conference League standard.
Probably, yeah.
He's come straight into the Championship, and already him and Hackney just look, well, 2 superstars really for me. And look, we'll get onto more individual performances, but we've won the game today. And listen, there were scares in the game, don't get me wrong, there was, but it's put us back on track. We've capitalised on Cardiff's poor start to the season. We have really got a much needed win. And obviously now the fact that we're at the international break, it's left us in it's almost parked the season in a situation where you can't help but just be excited now. I just want the international break to be over. I'm not going to lie. Fair weather Cup fan, fair weather England fan. I've got absolutely no care in the world what happens in these internationals. I just want the championship to be back up and running.
Yeah, I agree with you to a certain extent, and that is because we have injuries, and I want those players back. So 2 weeks break will hopefully give us that, as it did sound that Rav and Johnny Elson were relatively close to making the squad for this game. So an extra 2 weeks rest will hopefully have them back for Preston and the block of games before another international break in October. How thrilling. So yeah, today I thought that it was probably our worst performance in the league so far. Um,
You
I,
know, the most interesting thing is I completely agree with you.
yeah, I thought in the first half it was a pretty non-event. It was, as you mentioned at the top of the podcast, Chris, that you had got Oasis tickets today. I didn't. I wasted a good few hours, and I wasted 45 minutes in the first half watching us do nothing and Cardiff do nothing for the first 45 minutes of the game. The two highlights of the game from the first half were Finn Azaz just chipping the ball into Ethan Hobarth's hands twice. That was the highlights from the first half. But yeah, you sat there at half time thinking to myself, look, the game is there for the taking. They look horrific, and we didn't look too much better at the time. So me thinking, yeah, come out quick and we can strip the game away from them very quickly. The opposite happened. They came out really quickly, started hammering down the door, and I mean, they did. They did break the door slightly down as Ramsey knocked the ball past Dieng, but Big Bill was on the line to have a bit of fortune with the ball ricocheting off the post back towards him. But yeah, the composure of him to just touch it down off his thigh and hoof it away. Yeah, I mean, it actually made me quite angry how poor we started the second half. But yeah, it was a wake-up call, and yeah, we started to grow back into the game. Azaz had an effort that drew a corner. Pretty well worked from him, in fairness, faking. Sometimes he fakes way too much. But yeah, cutting in on that right foot, getting his shot off, wins us the corner. And 2 weeks in a row, Chris. Set piece kings of the championship.
Yeah, I mean, for years it's been something, and it's a very sort of niche element of being a Middlesbrough fan. But for some unbeknown reason, every time that we've been on Sky, kind of over the last decade, there's always one random commentator which will make a comment about Middlesbrough being dangerous from set pieces. And for years, we haven't been. However, and now knowing this after the game, Grant Ledbetter may well have changed that, because Michael Carrick has come out after the game and said how much that Grant Ledbetter has a say and works with the team in terms of attacking corners. And like you say, 2 out of 2, the big baldy has got a magnet on his bonds, and now he's managing to put it to effect in the sense of he could be en route to being the first centre half in the history of the championship who will finish the season as top scorer, based purely off scoring headed goals from corners.
Ipswich might offer 30 million quid to put him up front.
He's been terrific this season, by the way, but he's just added goals to his game. And listen, I by no means expected it. I hope it continues. I'm not 100% sure it will, but I can't actually believe that we're in a position now, and we kind of had all this whole like topic and narrative at the back end of last season, but considering no one even saw Matt Clark, it's almost as if he was locked in a cupboard. And don't get me wrong, I'm not making a joke out of the fact he had some pretty traumatic injuries. Amazing that he's come back from that, by the way, but no one had seen Matt Clark up until he came back for probably, what was it, 18 months or something like that?
I think it may have been
And
14, ridiculous.
or
14.
14. And now the way he started this season, he's probably in the conversation for up there with one of the better centre halves in the division. In terms of redemption arcs, I think we all know the redemption arc of redemption arcs. Chuba Akpom, that was off the map, off the scale. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again. But as a close second, Matt Clark is right up there.
I mean, I don't want to say I told you so.
Nathan, I'm not even having it because he's actually exceeded even your expectations this season, I think.
Yeah, he has. I can't lie. He has. He's been our best player. I know everyone will say, look, Aiden Morris has been really good. I agree. I really do. Matt Clark has been by far and away our best player so far this season. Just consistent every single game that he's played. I don't want to say it, but I did tell you so. He is up there with one of the best centre halves in the Championship on his day. And I said this last season when he was coming back from injury. Okay, yes, he did give away that penalty at Leeds that day, and it made me look like a bit of a tit. But now you are seeing the vision, the reason why he was player of the season at literally every club that he's ever been at. Right?
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
give you that. Okay, I'll give you that one. I'll give you
yeah,
that one.
yeah.
I
That's
can't, I can't. I had the Rodrigo Muniz shout that he was actually a really decent striker. It's just we didn't use him properly, and I felt a bit sorry for him. And you saw last season, he then, I mean, maybe that might turn out to be a purple patch as well. I'm not sure, but he went on to prove that he's actually half decent in the Premier League. So I'm having that one. You can have the Clark shout. I mean, you mentioned it just before in terms of kind of, look, we're still very, very early into this season, but in terms of player of the season shouts, that seems ridiculous to say so early on in the season. But American boy, I'm going to go there again. He is in no way ever, he is never going to be credited with that goal today. But if there was a performance which deserved capping off with a goal, it was his performance today. Because what I will say is his shot was going out for a throw in. However, thanks to Aaron Ramsey being in the way, he's kind of got away with one. And yeah, it wrapped up the 3 points and ultimately just capped off. I was about to say a really efficient afternoon. I think just successful teams find a way to win. And by no means am I saying that kind of we were massively under the cosh. But when we weren't at our best, we've picked up 3 points, which if ever there was I seen a discussion this week on Twitter about what does typical Borough mean. Today being our worst performance of the season, despite the previous 2 results, is typical Borough.
yeah, it's just stupid, isn't it? Play really well against two newly promoted sides and concede 3 goals against these sides, and then the other 2 games against established championship teams, both Welsh, by the way, which is quite funny, and you just dispatch them easy. Really, yeah, really, really strange. But yeah, Aidan Morris, fantastic today. Performed really, really well. The midfield too of him and Hackney should pretty much be illegal for the level. It's pretty much cheating how good those two are together. Yeah, it's really, really exciting to see the signs that we're seeing already, and they've only played a handful of games with each other. And as you mentioned, his shot was going miles wide of the post. But nice one for Aaron Ramsey getting in the way of it. It secured 3 points, 2-0, comfortable away win in the end. 7 points from 12 on the board. And that must be like the most points that we've ever had at this stage of the season ever, probably.
Yeah, I think you could be right, to be honest. Although we've had those kind of derby results, I think overall, you look at it 7 from 12 and you think, grading it wise, maybe it's a B minus. Room for improvement by all means, but we've had some good performances, the kind of early signs of performances, and dare I say it, the expected goals, which in fairness does usually translate over the course of the season, that it kind of will turn. If you're generating that much, that eventually you will see the side start to score more goals. Today probably not as best of an example of that, but for the most part, we've battered everyone with it, as though that gets you any points. No, it doesn't. But you get what I'm saying. The early signs have been there. Some of the results haven't quite been there yet, but we've also managed to pick up a decent sum of points and are leaving ourselves with, I think, room for improvement by all means, but room for improvement in the sense of you're not looking for room for improvement so that you are trying to get out of the bottom three after a handful of games. And that, as we said in the preview, we would have taken before we'd even kicked a ball. And as stupid as it sounds, the position we're in now, compared to the position we're in last year at this stage, already you're thinking, we've got something really quite decent to build on here. So the excitement is still there. As I say, I really, really can't wait for us to kind of get back from the international break and hopefully, and I think we will. I honestly think we will kick on and really put a bit of a run together. In terms of kind of reviewing, if you want to call it that, it's a little bit early for a review, but in terms of how we've started, do you agree with my grading, or have I been a little bit kind of made a little bit fairer of an assessment, or would you be harsher in the sense?
No, I think it's probably right, Chris. 2 wins, a draw, and a defeat. On the balance of things, if it was probably if you cut out those mistakes against Derby and Portsmouth, you're probably on 3 wins and a draw. Really, not too far away, really, from where we should be. We'll probably accrue those points that we lost in those games from games where we play poorly and probably don't deserve anything from those from games in the future. Yeah, the points will balance themselves out over the season. I'm sure of that. But yeah, we've shown some good signs. As you mentioned, we are creating bagfuls of chances. As I said, today was probably our worst performance for that. We didn't create a whole lot, but we win the game 2-0. It's a funny old game. But yeah, we've had to deal with a little bit of problems so far in the opening 4 league games, with the injuries already trickling in. So 2 weeks off now. Hopefully we get a few more bodies back. Hopefully, even when we don't get those bodies back, they're a lot closer to being back without playing games, obviously. So yeah, fingers crossed we get a few of those players back. We'll obviously have Edmondson available and Dork for the next set of games, which is nice. Means that we'll have an actual fit centre half there to play alongside Matt Clark if Rav or Johnny Howson aren't fit. But yeah, I'd say that it's a pretty nice start. And look, you don't want to look at the league table this early on in the season, but in and around those playoff places already, we're off to a nice start. We're not playing catch up. We are where we want to be, there or thereabouts already from the get-go. First 4 games, points on the board. Yes, it could have been more. It definitely couldn't have been less. This was always what it was going to be, which is nice. And hopefully we can attack the next 5 games before the next international break in 2 weeks' time with a close to fully fit squad. And yeah, let's see what the next sort of set of games brings.
Yeah, okay, Nathan. I think that is probably going to be a good place to end it on, to be honest. As always, thank you ever so much for joining us. Thank you, Nathan, for your time. It is good to be back. It is really nice to talk about a Middlesbrough win and kind of, let's just say, take your mind off the more serious things in life, because sometimes life can be quite shit, but in moments where Middlesbrough win, you get to talk to your friends about it, you get to share these moments, and you get to have real nice memories and a good laugh. That is what's really, really important in life. So sorry to end on such a deep and meaningful one there, but yeah, Nathan, really appreciate your time today. Thank you ever so much for everyone that has watched and listened. We will be back next week. And yeah, once again, thank you ever so much. We will be back next week with another episode of the Boropolis podcast.